Debra Birnbaum, editor-in-chief of Gold Derby, and I'm your host for today's half hour with Zero Day, and our guest today is Lesli Linka Glatter. Lesli is the executive producer and director of Zero Day and was just nominated for an Emmy Award, I believe her ninth overall.
Yes, can you believe that? I was stunned and overwhelmed and thrilled simultaneously.
And much deserved. You were also nominated for your work on Mad Men and Homeland. You've been a producing director for 25 years. Basically, if there's a show you love, Lesli has had a hand in it. The Morning Show, The Newsroom, The Walking Dead, Justified, Ray Donovan, Masters of Sex. I could go on forever. And on top of everything else, you also got another day job as the president of the DGA.
Yes, it is a lot of work, but also amazing. It's an honor to represent our 19,800 members that also include directors in all areas and the directorial team, UPMs, ADs, stage managers, associate directors.
So lots for us to talk about today. We're going to get into all of it, but I want to start out by talking about Zero Day. Can you
Yes.
give us a quick overview of the series, and then we're going to play the trailer?
Okay, great. So Zero Day is an actual event. It's a real thing. It is the most feared weapon in the intelligence service. And there have been multiple zero-day events since 2014, which is the ability to take down an entire industry. So you take down heating in Ukraine in the winter. That is a cyber attack. So there have been many of them in banking and aviation and transportation, but they've been able to patch the flaw in software that has been hacked. We take the premise that there is a zero-day event that affects every industry simultaneously. And it takes down all industries for 1 minute. And there is a message on everyone's cell phone in the entire country that says, this will happen again. So it allows us to look at if we had another horrible crisis in this country, another 9/11, would we behave differently? So it really takes the premise of what is truth in a post-truth world when we can't tell the difference between fact and opinion. This is all juicy terrain, but of course, we have to have great characters at the heart of this. And I was blessed to collaborate with the amazing Robert De Niro, who plays President Mullen, an extraordinary cast, Angela Bassett, Connie Britton, Jesse Plemons, Lizzy Caplan. I could go on and on. This was a filmmaker's dream come true with this very provocative material. So I think that sets it up. And
Perfectly.
if there's anything I've forgotten, we have so much more to talk about.
Indeed, we do. So powerful, so timely, so relevant. So let's take a look at the trailer for Zero Day.
Great.
3,402 people died on Zero Day.
Absolute nationwide terror.
Computer systems completely hijacked.
A significant number of casualties.
Every phone in America displayed the same haunting message. This will happen again.
Mullen, thanks for coming.
Madam President, so what's the plan?
Congress is authorizing a special zero-day commission, hunting down anyone who aided and abetted this horrific attack.
You're just gonna grab people off the streets without warrants.
Actually, you are.
This is the greatest affront to civil liberties ever attempted.
Ex-President George Mullen is not only a wannabe tyrant, he's a deeply troubled man. I'm onto you, Georgie.
Sir, is there something going on here that you're not telling me about?
Prove to me you are of sound mind, or I will tell the country that you are not.
If the mob storms the castle and comes for all of our heads, everyone's gonna be in trouble.
Do you think he's being set up?
Another attack could happen at any moment.
I'm worried that you don't have this under control.
But I run this investigation, not the White House, not the CIA.
If the public finds out how deep this really is, I don't think we survive that.
Delicious. So good. So good.
Thank you.
How did this take me back to the beginning? How did this project first come your way?
So I was sent the pilot, the first episode of Zero Day. And again, this is a 6-part limited series. I ended up directing all 6 hours, which was an incredible and exciting undertaking because it's like doing 3 big movies, all smushed together. Robert De Niro was already involved. And the incredible writing team, which 2 of the members of happen to be journalists. So it's very realistically real and fact-based. Noah Oppenheim, who was president of NBC News for many years and wrote the screenplay for Jackie, was one of the co-writers with Eric Newman, who created Narcos, and Michael Schmidt created the story with Noah Oppenheim. And Michael Schmidt's a 2-time Pulitzer Prize winning journalist for the New York Times. So we have this incredible team, and I worked with them to develop the subsequent 5 hours. So that process was intense and exciting. And I've read every bloody book about zero-day events and met with a lot of people, again, in the intelligence community and the cyber world, which I always find fascinating. And then, of course, we're creating an entertainment. It is a paranoid conspiracy theory, thriller, at the core of it, with, I think, amazing characters, because at the end of the day, that's what's important.
So when you get a project like this, what's the first thing you do? How do you approach it? How do you even find your way in?
Oh, first thing when I'm reading something, if I start to see it and feel it and taste it and think, oh my God, I have to be the person to tell this story, then I know it's something I need to work on. I can read something where I'm fascinated by it. I would love to go see it, but I'm not the right person for it. So this is one that I read the first episode and I went, oh my God, I have no idea what's going to happen next. What is going on? What is really happening? And it delves into themes and questions that are exciting to me, again, about truth, especially now in the world we're living in. And what happens when a government or an individual is given unlimited power? Can democracy survive in darkness? So these are all questions that are exciting, but we made a very clear choice not to pick political sides. We never talk about Republicans or Democrats. We try to say in the world of ideas and fact and opinion, and rather than there are no bad guys here. Or there are bad guys, but but in their mind, they're trying to do something good for the country. So
It's complicated for sure.
it's complicated, and I think that's what makes it interesting. But at the end of the day, I'm interested in each individual character's moral compass and their relationship to truth. For Robert De Niro's character, ex-President Mullen. So again, he is tapped. He has been in retirement for 12 years. And he was a very popular bipartisan president when he was president, maybe the last one that anyone remembers. So when this event happens and 3,000 people are killed, the president goes to Mullen, who she thinks is a safe political choice because he's not involved in government anymore. He's retired, to lead the Zero-Day Commission to find out who's at the bottom of this. So ex-President Mullen, his relationship to truth is truth. It's non-negotiable. But you look at Angela Bassett's character, current President Mitchell, and her relationship is, yes, truth is important, but it's not always the most important thing. So it's each of those characters' individual relationship with their own moral compass.
It's so nuanced and it's so important to find the right tone so that the audience comes along that journey with you. How, as the producing director of this, do you set that? Because it's also unusual for someone as in your role to direct all 6 episodes of a series. Talk about what role you played in that.
Well, in the world of limited series, this is happening more and more. And I think it's very exciting. So I called a number of friends of mine who have done this and done it so beautifully. I called Scott Frank, who did Queen's Gambit. I talked to Steve Zalian, who did The Night of, as well as Ripley. So I talked to people like, how do you do this? Like, even just physically, how do you do it? And they were incredibly helpful with that. So I had some insight into
What advice did they give you?
they said, prep the whole thing. Be sure you take some sort of break in the middle, but which we actually really didn't do. We had a week off, but it was to re-tech scout locations that we had scouted 1,000 years ago. So it wasn't like a break, but it was an essential part of the process. And that's a lot of prep work. And so that was definitely a good suggestion. You have to look at it as the big picture. And for me, I came out, one of the things I love about directing is that everyone has a different path to doing what we do. I came out of a background of modern dance and choreography. So I had a completely different career before I started directing. So I'm very organized in that way. So I did massive charts for each character in terms of where they are. That was very important because if you're in a day shooting something from hour 1 and hour 5, what has happened to each of those characters in between? As a director, you have to really be on top of that.
Right.
And communicate very well with not just the cast, but with the crew. So everyone is on the same page and rowing in the same direction, which is always important. I mean, we're in a team sport and you want to get the absolute best team around you that you can get. And we had that, both as a cast and the most incredible New York crew.
And I would imagine working with an actor like Robert De Niro, who's
Oh,
used to working on a film where he's working with one director from, shoot, from start to finish. It's important for him for you to build that relationship with him. Talk about, how did you work with Robert De Niro? And even that is so
and
exciting.
Yeah, and also, I have to say, I think for Bob, the idea of multiple directors, since he had never done anything in television, though I don't approach television different than how you would approach a movie. I think we have to tell a great visual story, regardless of the delivery system, whether it's on a small screen or a big screen. You have to tell a compelling visual story. So when I met Bob, I have to admit, I was a little nervous. I mean, this guy's a legend,
Of course.
but he is so incredible. He is such a lovely human. He was so committed to the project and invested in the project and had great notes and was a wonderful partner. And also, he has a great sense of humor. And the number one on the call sheet, which is what he was, helps create the tone on the set, and he did a beautiful job of that. So all I can say is yes, he's extraordinary.
And then you've got this incredible cast around him, Angela Bassett, Jesse Plemons.
Dan Stevens, Lizzy Caplan, Connie Britton, Matthew Modine, and then people coming in like Gabby Hoffman. I had worked with Gabby when she was 12 years old.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes, on a movie called Now and Then, and reconnected with her when I was directing Homeland, when I was the producing director on Homeland, because she's Claire Danes' bestie. So it
Amazing.
was so amazing to work with her again as a grown-up.
How do you build a rapport on the set with your actors?
Oh, great question. I mean, the first thing I did, I have to say, when I decided to direct, or there was a story told to me that I felt compelled to direct when I was living overseas. So I spent 11 years overseas and was told a story when I was living in Japan that I knew I had to pass on, and I knew it wasn't dance. So that's the only reason I ever directed, which is, again, everyone's crazy path to doing this extraordinary job that we do. So I went immediately to acting class. Like, you want to have as many colors in your paint box. And that was one that was not something I had directed theater, but I felt it was important to really be able to know how to talk to actors. So
Mhm.
that, and ironically, I studied with an extraordinary woman by the name of Joan Darling, who's kind of an icon. And then years later, when I became an advisor at the Sundance Directors Lab, she ran the acting programs. So she recircled around in my life. So I think what's important is being able to spend the time with the actors to really figure out and dig deep to who their characters are, and develop that trust with your cast, that we're all telling the same story, and that, I'm a big planner. I think that comes from being a dancer. I
Sure.
shot list everything, but at the end of the day, I want to throw it all away and be open to the moment. If you have this incredible cast, you want to be sure you are open to what they're bringing to the party. And that balance is very exciting. And we certainly have that in Zero Day. Be
And
prepared, but be open.
so how does that play out on a show like Zero Day where there are so many twists and turns? Do all the actors know where their characters are going? And are you on that journey with them?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, we all 6 hours were written when we started. So there wasn't a mystery, let's say, in when I was doing Homeland, it was very ripped out of the headlines, as this is, but our scripts were not all written when we started the season. So there were questions about where people were going because some of it developed because it was a more ongoing series. This, it was closed in. So everyone knew where characters went, but you don't want to get ahead of yourself in terms of the story, and the character can't get ahead of what they know in the moment. So that was something I felt was incumbent on me to track. So again, I had these, long detailed outlines of every episode for every character. So when we jumped around, I would know where exactly people were coming from and going to, and where we were in the bigger picture of the story. It was challenging,
I'm sure. Well, I
but
think that's
exciting, but exciting.
exciting.
Yeah.
I think that's a good segue to take a look at a clip because I think, George Mullen, as played by Robert De Niro, definitely goes through his own arc in the show. So why don't you set up the clip that we're going to take a look
Oh,
at? 'Cause
yes.
it's a
Well,
specific moment for him.
this definitely needs setting up. So one of the issues we're looking at, again, is the issue of acuity in leadership. This is well before Joe Biden. So again, had that very difficult speech that we all saw. So this was an issue we all wanted to look at. And we did a lot of research about, quote, the memory palace. If you really can't remember something, what are the exercises that people do to try to remember something you absolutely can't find in that memory bank? So with doing the research on that, it's you empty the room, you try to recreate and fill it up again with every object, with everything that was going on in that moment to try to remember the piece of information that you have forgotten. And so that's what we tried to visualize, is how do you recall something that you absolutely can't find? And this is a theme that also goes through the story with Mullen.
Great. All right, let's take a look at the clip.
You need to write this down, write this down, write this down, write this down.
Yeah, I can talk now.
Incredible.
Yes, that was exciting. I worked with an extraordinary DP, director of photography, John Conroy, and he wonderfully is nominated as well for his work, and his work is just amazing. He is an extraordinary collaborator and partner, uh, and a wonderful human being, which is also very important. And we spent a lot of time trying to come up with what this would look and feel like. And we wanted to do it in camera. So all of those effects are done in camera.
That's so smart because I think it probably helps. I feel weird saying Bob, but Bob's acting as well.
Well, I think it made it very visceral and didn't feel created. And it was layering of different images on top of one another, but shot we skipped frames, we used various different camera stock cameras, 16 millimeter cameras, to play around with how we could do this.
What the other thing that really strikes me about Zero Day, and we can talk about more about, for people who haven't seen it yet, is you're so comfortable with so many different kinds of moments. You've got these intimate character moments, these intimate character relationships, and also these sort of really big set pieces where things are happening. How do you accomplish that? How do you get comfortable doing all of that? It's just learning through experience?
I am always interested in stories that have a big picture, macro view of the world. I want to know the world that this is taking place. If it's political, I want to be in the back rooms of power where decisions are made. I think this story has a level of anxiety under everything. So how do you create that? But you have to juxtapose it with great characters. So you need the macro vision and the micro vision, the interpersonal. So it's how people are reacting in the world moment by moment with each other. So that, to me, that juxtaposition is the most exciting. And this is one where I love stories where characters look at both sides of an issue. Maybe in a scene you have a character with completely opposing views and they're both right. That creates excitement rather than saying you're supposed to think and see this in a certain way, to create that kind of dialogue. And again, this is a world that needed to feel realistically real. We had incredible advisors on this. Um, we had Jeremy Bash, who was chief of staff at the CIA and chief of staff at the Pentagon. And so we were constantly both Anastasia White, our amazing production designer, in terms of how you create the Zero Day Commission. What does that look like? Oh, it moves into an already existing federal building. It's put together overnight, which we show. And it is a combination of all different agencies. So we talked to him about signage, about who would be working where. So it felt realistically real. Again, with this level of anxiety, uncertainty everywhere. We worked with Clint Watts, who I had worked with on Homeland, who was one of the advisors, one of the top people in cybersecurity. So we were constantly having discussions.
You definitely are drawn to these really complicated shows, but you've also done some really intimate, sweet, and then also you came up through ER. Talk about what being a producing director means as well. I mean, I think, I mentioned that at the top, but it also gives you a lot of freedom to be involved in the creative process.
Absolutely. I mean, I love the crazy process that we go through as storytellers in television. And I was lucky enough to start my career with amazing mentors and storytellers. So my first job was on a ancient series called Amazing Stories, where Steven Spielberg was the executive producer and a director. And he was such an incredible, and still is, an amazing mentor. I directed 3 of them. It was an anthology show, so every episode was a closed-end story. And he just encouraged me, don't look at TV as a lesser medium than film. You are a storyteller. Tell the best visual story you can tell. But with TV, you have a much shorter time, a shorter prep time, a shorter shoot time. So it is incumbent on the director to really understand what story you're telling. What is the text? What is the subtext? And he was just an extraordinary teacher. So my first day of filming on a professional set, having directed one thing, I had 300 guys storming a beach in World War II.
God,
Yeah,
amazing.
again, being a dancer, I'm used to moving people through space, but it was terrifying. And every time I start a new project, it is terrifying. And as someone who is in a creative endeavor, I think that's normal. You should be terrified,
Right.
because that keeps you learning and growing. But once I sink into the story, I feel comfortable again. But then my actual first TV show was Twin Peaks. And how unusual Twin Peaks was. Again,
Right.
run by another extraordinary director, David Lynch, who couldn't be more different. And I learned so much from him. I directed 4 of them. And that was really my film education, was from these 2 extraordinary and very different filmmakers. And you know, David was so much about being in the moment. Plan, but be open to every opportunity that presents itself. So that was a great background to come from. So I made choices because I was used to being poor. I was a modern dancer. We make no money. So I only picked projects that I felt I related to. And I didn't know that that was a good career choice at the time because there were so
Right.
few women directing that I have some dogs in my resume, but mostly I have really good things because that's what I related to. So poverty actually helped me make good choices. And the idea of I have had great collaborative relationships with writers, and I love the idea of developing with a writer where we are partners in the process. That's the best it gets. So, being the producing director, you are there for the whole run, whether it's a 12-part series or a 22-part ongoing series or a 6-part limited or a pilot. I've always believed in those kind of partnerships where we're working together to tell the best possible story. And that's exciting. I mean, we are in a team sport and you are only as good as your team. So you want these 200 people who are helping you move mountains every single day on your crew. You want the best artists and craftspeople and you want to listen to them. Have your plan, but give it up the minute somebody else has a better idea. The best idea has to win. So in that kind of collaboration, when it truly is about the story, it's so thrilling.
And the results really show for it. Is there one thing for someone who hasn't seen Zero Day or hasn't had a chance to check it out yet? Is there one thing about the series that stands out for you?
I do think it's anxiety producing in some way, but also at the end of the day, I think it's optimistic. It does fall in this world of paranoid conspiracy thriller world. And obviously, when one is starting out, I, as a director, take inspiration from absolutely everything, whether it's other films or photographs or paintings or nature, whatever your resource is to start figuring out your ideas. There's certainly films I screened that were in that world. I mean, listen, I have a go-to film anytime I'm working on a thriller, which is All the President's Men. And All the President's Men tells a story that we all know the ending to. It's Watergate. But every step of the way, you're on the edge of your seat as if the story's ending could be different.
Right.
That is incredible storytelling.
So good.
So for me, inspiration comes in a lot of places, from a lot of places, and you want to be open to that in every way. But I have to say, as far as, younger people, I've always mentored. I believe in that. I believe you open the door and grab the hand of the next generation, and that creates exciting, innovative storytelling. So yeah, I feel blessed that I get to do this job and work with such extraordinary artists along the way.
And you do it so well. And so please, if you haven't checked out Zero Day, please do. It's an incredible thrill ride. Thank you so much for joining today, and thank you to our friends at Netflix.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Debra, and thank you so much to Netflix for supporting us.